Hello, my name's Alex. Congratulations on building your plinky. The first time you switch plinky on and power it up from either USB or Eurorack under here, and you'll see that plinky has ports on the top and bottom, which you can use either of them. From left to right you have line input, USB power and headphone output, and the same on the bottom. Line input with nothing in it right now, USB power and headphone output. And the first time you switch on plinky, it will go into calibration mode. If you ever need to recalibrate, perhaps because you've changed fingers, calibration is really about teaching plinky about how big or little your fingers are. And if you change who you are or what case you're putting plinky into, you may want to recalibrate, or the angle even that you're playing from. So recalibration is very easy. You just aim for the lit pad and press it evenly and not super hard, just medium, firmly and without moving. And you basically touch each circle and turn, each pad and turn until it flashes, and then you can move on to the next one. It's quite quick, not very exciting, but it works. And you do all 72 lights. So let me finish off this row just to show what it's like. Okay, so that row is completely done now. Don't forget to do the blue ones along the bottom. These are the shift keys, so you want to be nice and accurate for these. Okay, I'm going to assume that you carry on that to completion. Now, if you make a mistake, just unplug and replug plinky, and it will do it again. Now, because this plinky is calibrated, I don't need to do it again. So here we are in plinky. So think of plinky as an 8-stringed instrument. There are 8 strings from left to right. The lowest string. And you can choose which scale. And then the next one is a 5th up. And the next is a 5th up. And the next is a 5th up. And the next. And each of these strings is like a monophonic synthesizer stacked next to each other, and they're completely independent of press, so they can and each string has a low pass gate, so the harder you press, the more the gate opens, which gives it a nice timbral quality. And that's polyphonic. And how do you edit the sound? Well, that's what these shift keys at the bottom are about. The most important are the top and the bottom. You also have the presets, which allows you to record patterns and presets, previous and next step for the sequencer, clear or rest, record and play. Okay, so let's use the top button, which you hold down, and now you can choose any of the parameters. The top left parameter is shape. So let's start with that. Now I can still play, but the leftmost string, the lowest string, is now a shape control. You can also use the encoder to make fine adjustments. If you click the encoder, it goes back to 0. Now, if you go negative, you get PWM, sort of squarish sounds. All the way through 0. Okay, let's go back to 0 by clicking the encoder. So that's the top parameter for that pad. The bottom parameter for the same pad is noise. So if I turn that up a very little bit, a little bit of noise, turn it more. Let's leave that off for now. Let's go back to the top and go to the next pad along, which is distortion. So no distortion. Let's turn it up a bit. Oh, that's quite a lot. Or crank it even more. really intense. Let's turn that down. A really fun thing to do is modulate these parameters. So basically on the right you have modulation sources. You have the base value, you have a secondary envelope, pressure, 4 analog inputs A, B, X and Y, which correspond to the A, B, X and Y CV inputs. Each of those also has an LFO. I'll explain that in a moment. And a random amount. Let's start with a random amount. So we're on distortion. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the top button. I'm going to say distortion again. And I'm going to choose the random modulation. So what I'm now doing is I'm connecting the random modulation amount to the distortion. And this is a full modulation matrix, so you can connect any of these to any number of the parameters. So now the value I'm dialing in isn't the amount of distortion, it's the amount of randomization on the distortion. So every single note is now going to have a different amount of distortion. Let's try it. In fact, if I put the arpeggiator on, you'll really hear it. Switch on the arpeggiator. Okay, that's cool. Now I also want to affect the base amount of, the sort of starting point of the distortion, but actually I'm going to do it with a different one. Let's do it with sensitivity, which is the first parameter on the second row. And I should say that the parameters are in neat organized rows. So the first row is generally the sound, and you can see it labeled here sound. Second one is envelope. Third one is effects. Sequencer and arpeggiator, sampler, which I'll get to in a minute, the A, B, CV inputs, so A and B, the X and Y CV inputs, each of which has an LFO as well, A and B and X and Y, and then the mixer, which is for things like controlling the audio in. And you can use Plinky as a live effects unit. All of the sounds you hear are from Plinky, there's no external effects being used here. So where were we? So we've got an arpeggiated. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the sensitivity, which I'm now going to just preview. So let's turn down the sensitivity for a moment. That closes down the gate. And turn it up again. It's more nasal. So what I'm going to do, start with a very low amount of sensitivity. Maybe 25. But I'm going to connect that to the A knob. So I basically hold down the top button. I go to sensitivity, I say A knob, and now the screen is telling me that I'm connecting the knob A to the sensitivity control. So let's say that I want, 50% modulation. So now this knob has become a control for my, this knob is the A knob. That's fun. Let's put some octaves onto the arpeggiator. So the arpeggiator row is across here. So if I hold the top parameter, this row affects the arpeggiator, and if I hold the bottom parameter, it affects the sequencer. We'll come to the sequencer in a moment. So let's do the arpeggiator. So we have octaves over here, arpeggiator octaves. So I have it as 1 octave. Let's go for 2. Nice. Maybe I'll go back to 1. You also have probability. This is a Euclidean rhythm probability. So it's how many of the arpeggiator notes are packed into a bar. So this is 100%. Let's give this more of a plucky sound. Let's modify the envelope. I hold down top. The envelope row, we've already seen the sensitivity. Let's go to attack. Turn that right down. Let's go to the decay. Let's sort of make it a bit shorter. Nice. Let's go for the sustain and we'll turn that right down. Okay. Nice. Now let's maybe connect the sustain level to the B knob. So I'm going to go to the hold down top, press sustain, and now I'm going to say modulate by B, and I would like plenty of modulation, please. Okay, let's try it. Nice. I'm going to have it actually even more. So let's go back to sustain. I'm going to make the sort of basic amounts of sustain perhaps a little bit higher. Let's try that like that. That's nice. So now I have control over the sort of sensitivity over here and the pluckiness over here. So let's use the sequencer. All I have to do, at the moment the pattern is set to be 8 steps, but you can have up to 64 steps. Let's use step sequencing. So I'm going to press the record button. And now I can just play in some notes. What am I going to play? Okay. Maybe I'll have a rest next. Rest. And then rest again. Okay, let's stop record and hit play. Okay, that's too fast. I want to have my sequence go much slower. So I'll hold down the bottom, which is the sequencer row. If I hold top, I get arpeggiator. Bottom is sequencer. So I choose divide, sequencer divide. Let's turn it up to like 32 out of 32. Rest. Okay, let's make our arpeggiator divider be in 4s instead of 3s. Let's try that. Rest. Rest. Nice. Okay, I'm going to speed up my sequencer a little bit. So I go to the divide again. Maybe I'll go with 16. And maybe I'll change the ordering. So I basically go to the order, sequencer order. Again, I'm holding down the bottom. It's currently set to forward. Turn it up to random. Back to forward. Nice. Now the delay, let's go and modify the delay. The delay length at the moment is quite short. I can make it longer. Let's have much more delay send, so there's not much delay. Oh, there's no delay send. And if I make the delay length negative, you can have very short delays. That's not very short. That's getting shorter. Let's turn the feedback up as well. So hold down feedback. Where are you, feedback? Here. Turn it up to 75%. Nice. Okay, let's do indecision. So many parameters. So delay time is still quite long. Let's make that way less. Delay time, let's do it in 30 seconds. Let's try that. Last thing, I think I'll just change the octave. So basically the octave is on 1. All right, let's show you the preset mode. So I was editing preset 1. I have 32 presets, so I can just go to another preset. I have no idea what's in here. Aha, a piano sample. I'm going to show you how to recreate that in a moment. Preset 3 is probably nothing. Oh, 60s sci-fi, that one. So you can use the 32 presets however you like. You also have 24 patterns that you can choose, so you can record in patterns and share them between your presets. And then the last column is the 8 samples. So let's find a preset that's definitely blank. And if I wanted to clear it out, if that wasn't what I wanted, I could hold down the clear button and then it clears it. Okay, so now we have a clear pattern. Let's hook this up to my iPad, which has not been playing ball with me this week, but let's see what happens. So I take my iPad and I've plugged the line out into my plinky. So I just plug a little jack plug in there. Very nice. Unlock the iPad. Now I have a sample on here from Freesound. Let's see if it plays. There we go. Now this is actually playing through plinky. And I can ask plinky to process. So if I just put on some reverb, for example. So you can use plinky as a real-time effects unit. Right, let's record this. So I go to preset mode. Let's say that I want to replace sample 2. I hold it down. Oh, there's a bit of a nasty sample in there, sorry. So I hold down the record button and it erases it. Now, plinky has 32 megabytes of RAM. That's mono, and it's divided into 8 slots, as you saw from the top to the bottom. And each one is 65 seconds. So it's erasing the 65 seconds for us. It takes less than 65 seconds, but I'm afraid it's not instant. Okay, so we're ready to set the recording level. So I'll hit play. Now I can turn the A knob to set the... That's too loud. Let's turn that down a little bit. Nice. Okay, so I've set the recording level. Let's rewind on the iPad. And then I hit record again. So now it says that's the rec level. Now it says armed. I hit play. Starts recording. And this is a sample from Freesound. It's called Bradovich. It's 45 seconds long, so that's nice. Nearly there. And you can see you get a waveform display on the display, and also the LEDs allow you to see the levels. Okay, last chord coming up. Right, let's let that ring out. That'll do. Stop. And now what it's done is it's laid that sample out for me across the 64 pads, starting from the top and going to the bottom. So you've got... And there are 8 slice points corresponding to the top row of the eight strings. So you can then use your finger to, if you look at the waveform display, I can actually trim where exactly each of the 8 kind of slices, if you like. Let's go back a bit to... You can also use the encoder to dial this in, but I'll do it quickly here. So that's 5. Let's get a nice... So we've got a nice and snappy... And let's move to the nearest point. And so this is great for drum loops. You can dial in basically 8 beats from your loop. But I like to use plinky for ambient stuff, and spoken word is particularly fun. So now I've very quickly dialed in the slice points for the 8 points. And now that I'm happy, I'm done. I can just press the preset button and I'm back to play mode. Except now, that's a nice pad. And it's polyphonic. Okay, one trick is the mixer, which we haven't tried yet, which is the bottom row. If I just choose I have to hold it down, the first synth level, if you turn it up, it actually compresses it slightly, which is good for the sample because there's quite a lot of dynamic range. Nice. Okay, let's actually time stretch this. So if all of the sample parameters are across here, I'm going to go to time stretch and then turn it down to 0. And that means every pad now is frozen in time. And maybe I'll turn up the grain size as well. So the grain size is here, it's in the middle, but let's have nice big grains. So now we're basically going to have a granular freeze of the sample. Find some nice ones. That's nice. So that's the sampler. Okay, to wrap up, let's try something with a nice long, slow kind of feel. So I'm going to go to preset, I'm going to choose one of the other presets, I'm going to clear it out. And let's just dial in a really long attack time. Maybe not that long. Let's a nice long decay, a nice high sustain, and a nice long release. Really long release. Let's try that. Nice. Let's have a little bit of delay because, you know, life is better. A little bit of reverb. Okay, let's add some LFO. So let's say we're going to do it on pitch. So I'm going to hold down top and pitch. Pitch is as you'd expect. Okay, but what I want to do is not the bass pitch. I want to connect pitch to, let's say, the X parameter. And I basically say I want pitch to be modulated by X, I don't know, 30%. So now we have to set up what X does. Now I could plug a voltage straight into X and immediately I'd have an LFO wobbling my pitch, you know, vibrato. But right now there's nothing plugged into X. But that's fine, because this row here, XY, allows me to modify what X does. And one of the things it allows me to do is set up an LFO depth. So I can say, yes, I want some LFO depth. And you can actually see the LFO wiggling the third line down as ABXY. So now, okay, that's a bit intense. LFO depth, maybe 20. Okay, let's turn up the speed. Rate, there we go. Actually, I'm going to go a lot slower and much less. Let's have a much less. You can also set up an interval, so every voice is actually 4 oscillators, in some cases 2 when you're using the wavetables. So I can set up an interval between those fixed intervals. So here I've dialed in the 7th, 7 semitones, which is a 5th actually. As you can see, Plinky is incredibly deep. There's samplers, there's wavetables, there's LFOs, there's CV modulation. It's incredibly fun to play with, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks very much for building it, and please share any music you create with it. Thanks very much. Bye.